Some roster details do not always jump off the headline, but inside the building, they can shift the whole conversation. In Santa Clara, this week is about quiet belief in Jake Tonges, a cheap possible piece for the receiver room, the rest advantage the NFL gave the Rams after Australia, and a veteran name who could help protect Brock Purdy while opening lanes for Christian McCaffrey. This is contender football behind the scenes. Depth, schedule, health, and real fine-tuning. If you live this team every day, subscribe right now, because today we are looking beneath the surface. And the first signal comes from a position a lot of fans only notice when something has already gone wrong. The second tight end. Because when the conversation starts with George Kittle, everybody sees the star power, the violence, the personality, and that all-pro impact that changes the weight of a formation before the ball is even snapped. But over a long season, especially for a team trying to push deep into January, the building has to ask a tougher question. Who keeps the plan alive when the star needs to breathe, heal, or miss time? That is exactly where Brent Sobleski of Bleacher Report placed Jake Tonges as the 49ers' best-kept secret heading into organized team activities. And honestly, I like that pick because it is not trying to sell Tonges as some watered-down version of Kittle. That is not the idea here. The idea is operational trust. It is Brock Purdy stepping into the huddle and knowing that if the offense needs to stay in heavy personnel, use play action, attack the middle, or block with a real route threat attached, the game does not have to become nervous improvisation. Kittle is still elite. Nobody serious is questioning that. But across 9 seasons, he has played a full regular season only once, back in 2018. Now he is still rehabbing the Achilles injury he suffered in the playoffs, even though he has sounded optimistic about being ready for the start of 2026. So the internal question is not pretty, but it is necessary. If Kittle is not 100% right away, does this offense have a grown man ready to take meaningful snaps? Tonges answered part of that last year. He played every game, earned a real opportunity as a target, and caught 34 passes for 293 yards and 5 touchdowns. And when the temperature rose against Seattle in the playoffs, stepping into that Kittle space, he caught 5 of 6 targets for 59 yards. That is not some throwaway note. That is Kyle Shanahan finding a dependable piece without having to change the offense's identity. The 2-year, $8 million contract says the same thing. The Niners saw usefulness, saw fit, and saw a player Purdy already trusts within the progression. On a contender, that kind of backup is not a luxury. It is protection against disaster. Now, if Tonges is the quiet protection for the tight end plan, Kayshon Boutte fits in another drawer of that same office. Insurance for a receiver room that looks strong on paper, but still has a few warning lights in the recent history. And this is where the 49ers need to be cold and honest behind the scenes, even while the fan base wants to picture only the best-case version. Because the best-case version is exciting. Mike Evans healthy, Ricky Pearsall whole, Christian Kirk available, and Brock Purdy with answers at every level of the field. But front offices that build only around best-case scenarios usually pay for it in December. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated wrote that Boutte could be available for a 5th or 6th round pick in next year's draft. That kind of report does not make anybody sprint to the phone, but it should make a serious franchise do the math. Boutte is coming off 2 productive years in New England, totaling 76 catches on 114 targets, 1,140 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He is entering the final year of his rookie contract, counts only $3.7 million against the cap in 2026, and the Patriots may prefer getting something now if they do not plan to pay him when he reaches the market. For San Francisco, the question is not whether Boutte walks in as a star, probably not. The real question is whether he is better than the uncertainty behind the top 3 names. Evans dealt with a hamstring issue and played only 8 games last season. Pearsall also missed 8 games with a knee injury. Kirk has played 33 total games over the last 3 years. That does not mean this group is about to collapse. It means the front office has to study depth without getting romantic about youth. Dazon Stribling, Jacob Cowing, and Jordan Watkins all have value. They have development ahead of them, and San Francisco used draft capital there. Demarcus Robinson seems to hold that spot heading into 2026. But Boutte brings one trait that can really change the board: legitimate vertical depth. His career average depth of target is 16.2 yards, and he owns a 60.7% contested catch win rate. For a quarterback like Purdy, who will attack downfield when he trusts the window, that matters. And he had only 1 drop logged by Pro Football Focus last season. That matters too. So behind the scenes, I would not treat this name like some obsession. I would treat it like an open folder sitting on the desk. If the price stays at a late pick, if the medical picture in the receiver room creates concern, and if Shanahan wants one more target who can threaten vertically, Boutte deserves to stay on the radar. The 49ers do not need to move out of fear, but they also cannot act like offensive depth magically solves itself just because the starting lineup looks pretty in May. And now we get to the detail that looks small to people who read the schedule like a refrigerator magnet, but inside an NFC West season, it can leave a real mark. The NFL put the 49ers and Rams in Australia, in Melbourne, to open the season. Long trip, brutal time zone hit, broken routine. Coming home with your body still trying to figure out what time it is. Up to that point, both teams are flying into the same competitive problem. But the next week, the symmetry disappears. David Lombardi pointed out the issue. San Francisco plays Week 2 on Sunday against Miami, while Los Angeles hosts the New York Giants on Monday night. In real terms, the Rams get about 28 extra hours of recovery. And before anybody tries to reduce that to fan complaining, let's talk the way people inside the building talk. Recovery is a resource. Sleep is a resource. Game plan installation is a resource. Treatment in the facility is a resource. After crossing the planet for a division rivalry, 28 hours are not some tiny little note. That is margin. And what makes the read even more uncomfortable is the context. The Rams were not handed a monster right away. They get the Giants at home. The 49ers get Miami and Santa Clara, also at home, but without that same breathing room. Nobody is saying the schedule has to be perfect, because the NFL never lays out a red carpet for anybody. But when the division race can come down to one game, one tiebreaker, or 1 week where the body does not respond, that kind of difference becomes a closed-door conversation. Kyle Shanahan had already shown frustration with the Australia situation, and honestly, I understand it. The 49ers lose the chance to watch their fans take over SoFi, become the road team on the other side of the world, come back trying to reset the body clock, and then see their direct rival get more time before Week 2. That does not remove responsibility, it actually raises it. The response has to be more professional, more obsessive, and cleaner. The Niners have to turn that irritation into organization. Planned travel, smart rotation, measured practices, accelerated treatment, and absolutely no soft excuses. And I want to hear from the faithful on this one. Is this just schedule noise? Or did the NFL give the Rams an edge that could matter later? Because to me, a real contender cannot get stuck inside the complaint, but it also cannot pretend the board was not tilted. San Francisco has to beat the game, beat the logistics, and beat the narrative that the Rams and Seahawks have already jumped ahead. This is the kind of week that does not look pretty on a highlight reel, but it can decide respect. And the final piece of the day may be the least glamorous one for a thumbnail, but it may matter the most once the season starts and Chris Jones, Jalen Carter, and every heavy interior defender in the league starts pushing Brock Purdy's pocket. ESPN's Matt Bowen listed Kevin Zeitler as a fit for the 49ers among veteran free agents still on the market. And I am saying this as a fan who has watched seasons die because of details in the trenches. A good offensive guard does not go viral every week, but a clean quarterback changes January. Zeitler is 36 years old, made the Pro Bowl in 2023 with the Ravens, has played for the Bengals, Browns, Giants, Ravens, Lions, and Titans, and brings something San Francisco should value almost like gold after so many injury-heavy years: availability. He has played at least 15 games in each of the last 11 seasons. That matters. In Santa Clara, where every pretty plan has to survive the training room, having a veteran who knows how to prepare his body, understands angles, does not panic against heavy defensive fronts, and has seen almost everything a defense can throw inside, that carries weight. Bowen highlighted Zeitler's physical presence, his ability to move defensive tackles in the run game, and his movement skills to pull in gap concepts, which fits what Kyle Shanahan likes to build when he wants to vary the punch. In pass protection, he finished last season with a 92.4% pass block win rate, ranking 37th among 65 qualifying guards. That is the profile of somebody who can raise the floor of a line that lost Spencer Burford to the Raiders and still has to decide how much it wants to trust internal competition. And here is the real behind-the-scenes part. When you pay Brock Purdy, when Christian McCaffrey is still a central piece, and when George Kittle is coming back from an Achilles injury, the offensive line cannot be a place where you just keep improvising forever. Purdy does not need luxury. He needs enough time for Shanahan to open the full playbook. McCaffrey does not need a pretty speech. He needs real creases between guard and tackle, clean combinations, and people who can climb to the second level without turning every run into survival. Zeitler would be a window signing, not a far future move. A grown-up move, maybe short, maybe 1 year, to stabilize a sensitive spot while the young players continue to grow. And I know part of the fan base always wants the explosive name, the wide receiver, the pass rusher, the splash. I like that too. But sometimes the move that holds an entire campaign together is the one that shows up on a protection sheet, on a 3rd and 2 run, or on a blitz that never gets home. If the price fits, John Lynch needs to look at Zeitler seriously, because a contender that respects itself protects its most expensive investment before asking him for miracles. At the end of the day, this is not just about one possible signing, one schedule complaint, or one likable backup getting praise. It is about how contenders are built in the quieter corners of the building. Tonges protects the Kittle plan. Boutte would be a cheap card for a receiver room that has to survive wear and tear. The Rams' rest advantage puts pressure on the planning. Zeitler reminds you that Purdy and McCaffrey need structure, not just talent around them. Santa Clara is working the margins, and margins decide big seasons. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and come back for the next video, because the 49ers race is going to be won in the details.